Little be running, having great big fun until he got the note saying toe the line or blow, and that was all she wrote. He'd be making like
This how
a
you all jam
heading
before
for
the
the
show?
borderline, going for broke, saying one more hit or do
No,
it.
this is good.
This just ain't nothing to it. One more for the road. Lead up. Whoa. He's for the money, he's for the show. Lead up, waiting for the road. Lead up. Whoa. One more job ought to get it. One last shot and we get it. One more on the road.
All right, you hear the sound. It's 9 o'clock on this Friday night. That means it's time for the Live Zone Prime Time. I'm producer Chris. This is Tony
Yes,
P.
sir.
And we are going to get right down to business because
We better.
unbelievably, we just made it through what was like the nicest week we've had in a while. Some of that
beautiful.
snowcrete finally melted
My
away.
heart started to warm, Chris, like the
yeah,
Grinch.
Tony P's.
It grew three
sizes to his small heart.
The small grew 3 sizes larger. And I'll tell you, I did my Steve Spurrier at the opening there because of what's coming.
What's coming
Can't-
could be
no.
another chance for winter weather.
No.
So without further ado, we need to bring in the man that everyone wants to hear from.
Why
on this
only
Friday
bad
evening,
news?
the
Why
most-
only
Hello,
bad
my
news
friend.
with
Well,
you?
The
because
most in-demand man at Fox
You
5,
don't bring me over
meteorologist
here when
Mike
there's good
Thomas.
news, Tony. You only bring me over. You only invite me in when I have to give the people bad news.
What are you, Neil
I would
Diamond?
like to
You
join-
don't bring me flowers?
If it's sunny and 70, I would love to join you and give you the good news. But no, it's
You
bad,
don't bring me flowers.
It's bad news, Mike. That's all I am to you guys. But yeah, so yeah, unbelievably. And look, I want to emphasize
Yes.
a couple of things, mostly because I need to log into the iPad here, and it's still giving me some trouble. But I want to
Like
put
the weather is.
I want to put this out right now. Weather-wise, this will not be what we did in January. And look, there is the chance that some parts of our region are going to get maybe even more snow than they did during that January case. The key difference with this system compared to what we did in January is the cold that comes after. You remember that one? We emphasized so much that the cold that was coming after the storm was going to be a major, major factor. That froze everything solid, the snowcrete. That's not going to be the case this time. Temperatures are warmer afterwards.
Good.
And that should not be as much of an issue. All right, let's hope it accepts my login here.
So there
And
won't
then
be.
we'll get ready.
So there won't be any issue of potential icing with this type of weather
Yeah,
change.
because that was one of the things we heard you mention earlier, Mike, was that before that last storm, it was so cold, the ground, the surfaces were freezing cold. We've had a couple days of warmer temperatures theoretically. That will hopefully help the situation.
Oh, it's absolutely. So we're going to do some what we call white rain with this, where it's
White
coming down
rain.
as snow, but it's hitting the ground and it's melting.
Okay.
We have had
That's
temperatures.
good.
It hasn't been a pretty week until today. But most of this week,
Sunshine.
we have had temperatures up above freezing. We've had temperatures in the 40s. Things have been much, much better here. So let's go ahead and finally ready to get into this thing. Snow to end the weekend. And I do want to emphasize this because folks always ask about the timing. We've been telling you snow's coming on Sunday. Not Sunday morning. You will not wake up to a winter wonderland here in D.C. on
Good.
Sunday morning. Now, it is not going to be a nice day on Sunday. When this thing comes in, it's likely going to start off as some rain, go over to eventually some mix, and then we think after sunset will be the best chance for getting some of the snow accumulating on the ground here. National Weather Service, winter storm watches have been issued. They include Baltimore, they include parts of Montgomery, Loudoun, and Howard counties, as well as the entire county of Frederick, Carroll, and Baltimore, as well as Hartford County up there in northeastern Maryland. These are the areas where they feel most confident that there could be the potential. A winter storm warning in our watch in our issue. Let me rephrase that. A winter storm watch, when it's issued in our area, generally means...
I do that a lot. Listen, I am one to talk.
It's been a long day of talking,
Oh,
so
I'm
we
with you.
got more talking to do. Potential for 5 or more inches of snow is what a winter storm watch means. So those are the areas where they feel most confident. DC not in that just yet, and the numbers are all over the place for us here in Washington. Look, we cleared out today, saw some sunshine. We should see plenty of it tomorrow. Our eyes are on this feature out to the west. That's your spin, that's your upper level low. You see moisture coming in out of the south. That's going to go down, grab some moisture, and head off towards the DC area, and it could absolutely slam parts of the northeast. We think our forecast is difficult. They've gone from maybe getting 2 inches up near someone's hometown in Boston to probably looking at over a foot of snow.
What?
With this. So, yep. They're
Just
gonna
from that little system out
Just
there.
from that. Well, it's little for now. It won't be little for long.
It's going to pick up a little steam.
Pick up a little steam, and you'll see it on the model in just a moment here. So Saturday, I do want to emphasize, get out and enjoy it. It's going to be a lot like Valentine's Day was in D.C. Sunshine, middle 50s, comfortable feel. Sunday, you see that high temperature, 42. So that's why when this thing starts, it'll start off as some rain. It'll eventually go over to mix. That number will be dropping. We probably hit it around 11 or noon, and then we're dropping the remainder of the day as this storm intensifies off the coastline. Nothing's really changed. I'll skip this. This is boring. Now let me show you the models, and we'll get to the good stuff here, showing you exactly what we think will happen. And we're sort of leaning towards this model, the European. It's a popular one. But it gives the general gist of what we think is going to happen, which is a lot of mix and a lot of rain during the first part of the day. You see Sunday there at 11 o'clock.
Oh, there it is in Boston.
Right? It's not a snow storm on Sunday morning. It's as we get into Sunday afternoon, you got a storm that's deepening here off the coastline. As it strengthens, it's going to grab some cold air from the north, and it's going to pull it down towards the D.C. region. So we almost never do a rain to snow here in D.C. This is the one time we actually have a chance to do it, when you have one of these rapidly intensifying systems off the coastline. So the bulk of your accumulation, you see that 6 o'clock, from kind of 6 o'clock right into the late evening hours, that's your best chance for putting snow on the ground here in D.C. So no, you're not going to be able to go out and play in it on Sunday morning, but by Sunday night should be when it's coming down pretty widespread, and then the storm picks up, and you can see, Tony P., why they're getting the good stuff.
Wow.
New York up to Boston,
Yep.
southern New England, Long Island could all get a really good snow out of this one. Whereas D.C., it does start to get out of here as we get into Monday morning. We'll likely have to deal with some school closures, delays, all that, just because of the timing of everything. That model dropped about 4 inches here in Washington, so manageable. That would be less than we got with the January case. This would be a much wetter snow given temperatures. Not that it wasn't wet that day, but it was mostly sleet. This would be a wet snow that should be easily shovelable, and you can get it out of the way pretty easy.
Okay. That brings me to my question, because obviously that was a big thing with this past storm, was the timing of shoveling. Are we okay to do it Monday morning?
You're okay to do it Monday, because we're going to get above freezing on Monday afternoon. So if you want to put it off till Monday, you'll be just fine. Again, the biggest difference and what made that January case so unique was the fact that we had so much cold, and we did not get above freezing for, 12 days, I think, or something like that, after that storm. So that made the difference. That's not going to happen this time. Now, I mentioned we have a number of different model solutions. There are some that are much more aggressively snowy here. I'll explain why I don't believe it. You see, like this one, which is our future cast, has it snowing 5:30 in the morning here on Sunday, so it has some rapid cooling. The difference is it never warms up. We stay snow basically all day Sunday around DC. We don't think that's going to happen because of how mild temperatures are expected to be. We do think that they're going to be well enough above freezing. We think this model's too cold. So we think that even if it does go to snow, a lot of this isn't sticking initially. Now, we get into the evening hours, same things happen. You can see the snow bands starting to come off this low pressure system off the coastline. And you're going to be looking for these deeper blues that are in here, because when you get a storm developing, you get what we call banding. And it's whoever ends up under those bands that's going to get the highest snowfall totals out of this.
Right.
Right now, given what the model shows, that is likely going to be these areas off to the east, New Jersey, Philadelphia, down through the Delmarva area. DC kind of breaks up on the backside. But that's still a pretty healthy snow, and this one does show a little bit more, closer to 5 inches here in Washington. It's got some 7, 8 inch amounts closer to DC as well. But look at those Eastern Shore numbers really popping. I don't know if that's going to come true with 20 inches close to Salisbury there, but certainly the potential for 6 to 12 inches of snow, I believe, exists over on the Eastern Shore, given the trends we're seeing tonight. If you really want to go crazy, that American model, you've probably seen it on social media. It has been going crazy. Now, I will say, it is down. It had 30 inches here in DC yesterday.
What?
It's down to 7, or well, closer to 8.
What kind of numbers are they using?
So it's all about. I won't get too technical because I'll eat up your entire hour.
How does that so, like the delta is so large between those models?
It is, and that's actually why, and we're not the only ones. There's a lot of folks struggling. National Weather Service has said, we're not really sure if we're going to end up closer to 8, closer to 2. They're watching it very closely here, and we're really going to have to, almost what we call nowcasting, where we're watching radar, we're watching temperatures, and we might have to kind of on the fly say, you know what, this band's setting up across Montgomery County, and they're going to get 8 inches, whereas folks out to the west.
I know we're way into the Olympics, but I'm rooting for Europe.
Yeah, right. Go Europe.
Go Europe.
The gold medal model.
Go
right?
Europe.
Those are our expectations, and look, this was our first call map. Caitlin put it together earlier today. I've adjusted it just a little bit. My expectations are that areas out here, because the storm's developing way down here, so I think that these western zones, I-81, they'll get a little bit of snow, but I don't think you're looking at a big major snow out here along the I-81. That blue sliver is the Blue Ridge. Top of the Blue Ridge always will do better. They're under winter storm watches. Around DC, 3 to 6 inches. Is it closer to the 3 or 6? I honestly don't know at this time frame. We're going to have to continue to watch it. You just saw what I saw in terms of the highest amounts being off to the east there. So that's our general expectations with it. I mentioned we're chilly, certainly early next week. Each day should get above freezing now, and then another kind of semi-warm-up comes in towards the end of next week. So as far as for what we get, it's not going to stick around as temperatures jump back into the 50s by the end of next week. This should be I don't want to necessarily call it a more minor event. Compared to the January thing, it will not be as long-lasting impacts. It could still impact things on Monday, and if we end up booming, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. If it ends up we're on the lower side.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's obviously the big question a lot of the schools out there are facing, because they use so many snow days already. Right. So they're going to be watching your forecast closely. Too. We're going to be watching your forecast closely. Of course, you can stay with Fox Local for updates anytime, and Mike will be back at the top of the hour.
We'll see you at 10,
probably at 10:30 as well.
Probably
as 11 as well.
In a
pleasure for now, but we'll see you
on Fox Local. Mike,
I hope
thank
it's
you
3.
so much.
It's 3.
Also, coming up tonight at 10, Josh Rosenthal will have more on how the DMV area is getting ready for what is hopefully, Tony P., our last dance with Old Man
nice
Winter.
Chicago Bulls reference there. I see what you're doing
Thank you
there.
very much.
No, but I hope that I'm not going to Giant like tomorrow night when there's no food.
Yeah, don't do that again,
left.
Tony P. You should have learned your lesson last time.
I have.
The other story, of course, we're keeping an eye on, and we have been keeping our eye on all week, is that, well, all month, that Potomac sewage spill. D.C. Water estimates it will cost at least $20 million to clean up and fix the sewage spewing into the Potomac River. D.C. Water says it will be hosting community meetings next week in D.C. and Maryland. The utility company is reiterating D.C.'s drinking water is safe, but says there's still a lot of work to do. D.C. Water says they will have the repairs completed sometime in mid-March. Meanwhile, the other story that we've been following today. President Trump, a major defeat from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court struck down the president's tariffs. Supreme Court today delivering that setback. But just hours later, the president announced a new set of tariffs. The Supreme Court majority ruling that President Trump does not have the power to impose tariffs through the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Trump says he's not backing down, announcing new global tariffs this afternoon under a different law. The decision still marks a loss for the president after a string of victories before the high court. We'll have more on that decision tonight on the Final Five with Jim Loke. In the meantime, though, we want to get to our friend GOP commentator and strategist Malik Abdul joining us now live. Malik, thanks so much for spending some time with us, as always, right here on the Live Zone Primetime.
Thanks for having me, guys, and thanks for the weather report. I think I got a full gist of what the weather will be like. I am over winter, old man winter.
Yes.
I'm absolutely over. That's why spring and fall just happen to be my favorite times of the year.
It is. It's more like grumpy old men winter, because when you Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, the anger put into one with all this. Oh,
I agree with you.
Yeah, Tony.
No, I'll start it off. So with this decision today by the court, what are some of the tea leaves that you might be able to read, or anybody out there may be able to read, about the Supreme Court's potential rulings down the line when it comes to tariff cases such as this? Because this is a major decision for the Supreme Court after giving President Trump a lot of legal victories. Does this symbol a potential shift in the court in terms of holding the administration to more restraints, or is this maybe a one-off case?
I think I actually would look at this as a one-off case, and a number of the cases that the court has decided, depending on the issue, you'll have, if it's a majority sides against Trump, people interpret that one way. If it's a majority who side in favor of them, they decide another way. Obviously, Donald Trump is not happy about the result, but no president is happy when the Supreme Court rules against them. But it leaves a lot of unanswered questions about what's to come. Yes, we know that Donald Trump, I think he's already announced 10% global tax, which is, on top of the existing tariffs, but we really don't know what that means now that the Supreme Court has basically said that those taxes, at least the ones under that particular regulation, that he can't do it. So there really are a lot of unknowns, but that's not just with the markets, and the markets actually didn't respond negatively to the news at all. But I would imagine that it does create still a level of uncertainty for businesses, because it's those businesses who have actually had to bear the brunt of those initial tariffs.
Yeah, and that actually goes to my next question, which is, do these businesses have any hope of seeing a refund if this gets ruled, since this got ruled down and not struck as unconstitutional?
Well, look, I've been reading about it all day, and I can tell you this: there are businesses that would like a return, would like a refund. I was doing some digging. Even I was article reporting in the Wall Street Journal about a small business owner who gets a lot of her products. I think she makes baby products or something, but she gets those products from China because China is the only country that would allow her to buy in smaller batches because she has a smaller company. Well, she said that she expects, she doesn't know what will happen, but she did say that she expects to join an eventual lawsuit, class action lawsuit, actually trying to get those tariffs back, because I think that she said she paid about $50,000 in tariffs last year. So she's going to be one of those who's going to try to get those tariffs back. And I can't imagine what business would not try to recoup money that, in essence, the government owes them. So I expect that you're going to see more people at least talking about it, if not taking action themselves through the court to get their money back.
Some analysis today that's been coming out is this is the Supreme Court saving President Trump from himself, because tariffs are not popular across the board. Even within the GOP, you're having some splits among the more global trade folks versus the more kind of hardcore isolation tariff group, right? Is this potentially a way for President Trump to reset his economic message, or do you think this is kind of going to continue the same way it always has been with the tariff regime because of these constant, new tariffs? We'll try this law, try this other one, because you listen to Democrats and some Republicans, this could be a reset for the president. Do you see that happening?
You know, that's actually a very good question. And people approach it from different perspectives. Politically, if you ask any political strategists out there, and even if you ask, I'm sure, the political people at the White House, they're breathing a sigh of relief. The Republicans on Capitol Hill are probably breathing a sigh of relief. But this whole tariff philosophy, this is something that Donald Trump has had for years, and it's really been untested. So I think from Donald, it probably will be much harder for Donald Trump to accept that this is something that he's thought was a good idea for the economy all along. But at the end of the day, because we aren't seeing such a huge uptick in prices, consumers haven't actually felt that yet. So the administration is making an argument that we still have a ways to go. But as far as the political argument, and even I would say myself, it is much easier to make the argument that the Supreme Court did the Trump administration a favor because we really aren't even seeing the return on the investments from the tariffs themselves to go around during this midterm year to say that this has been such a great idea for us. We really just haven't seen that yet.
And speaking of the midterms, we've seen some kind of breaking of the dam in some ways between some Republicans in the Senate as well as the House who are retiring and President Trump on issues like tariffs and even some issues with the pardon power, these type of cracks we're starting to see, Epstein files, of course. Do decisions like this have a way of potentially threatening that MAGA coalition heading into the midterm elections, or could this be a rally around the president effect given the Supreme Court decision?
I think we've seen over the past few months where more Republicans, because let's be clear, whether it's the Republicans or Democrats, you don't see the sides actually not falling in line behind the president or the Speaker of the House or the Senate. But in this case, you've seen over the past few months a number of Republicans who, whether that's on the issue of tariffs, whether that's on the issue of war power resolutions, there have been a number of Republicans, the Epstein files even, there have been a number of Republicans who have pushed back. And I think that what you're seeing with this Supreme Court ruling is that you're probably going to see not just more of this from the Mitch McConnells and other Republicans who are retiring, but it does open the door for that. And MAGA, this split in MAGA really does exist because they feel as if any time you vote against the president, then you are somehow a rhino. And I think that you're going to probably see more of this during this midterm year where people try to distance themselves from some of Donald Trump's more controversial policies, particularly in places where there's, and there are questions about where they're not ruby red districts. I'll phrase it like that. You'll see this in areas where they're not ruby red districts. And Donald Trump, much like he did with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey and other Republicans, he's going to push back and MAGA is going to follow him, even though it may present some issues for the party.
When looking at one of the major events coming up next Tuesday, the State of the Union address, does this decision potentially lead to a change in the message from the president potentially? He's going to be coming in with a major defeat to his agenda. Do you see the tone shifting at all, priorities going into this new year with the midterms, or will he potentially stay on message as he's known to double down when he does suffer a defeat?
Well, I imagine that Donald Trump will double down and that he will have some criticism. Now, I'm hoping that he doesn't, but Donald Trump is Donald Trump. And I suspect that Donald Trump will probably have some digs in there. Even if the speechwriters didn't put it in there, he will have something to say for the two that he appointed, Amy Coney Barrett and Roberts. Yeah. He will probably have some criticism of at least the two, Coney Barrett and Gorsuch, in there, but I don't think that he's going to back away at all because from Donald Trump's perspective, his philosophy is that tariffs are a great idea. So much like he did today in the press conference where he came out, he really didn't see it as signal it as a defeat, even though this is something the administration has been expecting all along. He's going to do the same thing in the State of the Union that he did today. He's going to talk about is that we can do a workaround, which he's going to talk about the 10%. There are some other mechanisms that he could use for the tariffs. Even though the uncertainty will be out of there, Donald Trump will not concede to any sort of defeat on this at all. And he's going to try to walk out of the State of the Union, as do all presidents, looking victorious, even though this is a huge defeat in the Supreme Court.
right. Well, we will have complete coverage of this State of the Union coming up on Tuesday. Tony P and I, right here on the Live Zone Primetime and Fox Local. Malik Abdul, thank you so much for spending a Friday night with us here and lending your expertise to us as always.
Always a pleasure.
All right, thanks, brothers. Have a good one.
See ya.
You too. Stay warm this weekend. Hopefully no more snow. In the meantime, we're going to take you out our Fox 5 Skycam camera at the stacks overlooking the D.C. skyline. When we come back, Tony P, we're going to talk some medical news because there has been another possible measles exposure right here in the DMV. We're going to talk about that and more coming up next. We'll be right back.
Can hear you. Okay, perfect. Thanks so much.
Welcome back to the Live Zone Primetime on this Friday night, coming up on 9/25. Another day, another potential measles exposure warning right here in the DMV. This one right here in Montgomery County. Health officials say a Virginia resident with measles visited the building at 7200 Wisconsin Avenue. This happened on Tuesday, February 10th between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. Yesterday, Virginia's health department confirmed 2 cases of measles in Northern Virginia. And earlier this month, DC's health department issued an alert about multiple confirmed cases of measles whose carriers visited multiple locations in the district while contagious. That led to this video on Instagram that caught my eye.
Hi, I'm a pediatrician. I work in DC, and I just got this notification from DC Health that is talking about a measles case and where all of these exposures were in DC. And I'm reading through this list, and it is a literal nightmare. Like, you could not believe how many places this person was that were like extraordinarily crowded. And just as a reminder, measles is the most infectious disease, the most contagious one that we know of. And so essentially, like, if you have measles and you cough somewhere, that measles just stays in the air for hours. And so then people who come and breathe that air can catch measles for hours after you've left. And thankfully, the vast majority of people are still vaccinated. And so if you're vaccinated, you shut that down real quick and you don't actually develop measles. But little babies aren't vaccinated. Unvaccinated kids aren't vaccinated. People with suppressed immune systems from like transplants or chemotherapy, they're super susceptible. And so like if you're just waltzing around with your measles, it is so dangerous for so many people.
So that is Dr. Megan Pryor. She's a primary care pediatrician here in the DC area with a self-professed policy obsession. And tonight she joins us live to talk about why we're seeing these cases pop up here and across the country, why it's so dangerous, what you can do to protect yourself, and much more. Doctor, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the Live Zone.
Yeah, Thank you guys for having me.
All right, so we've had these exposure alerts here in D.C. We've had them in Northern Virginia. We've had them now in Montgomery County, Maryland. Also, multiple other states. There's an outbreak at a Florida college campus. I'm almost afraid to ask, but is this just the tip of the iceberg?
Yeah, I think, that's really the challenging thing is what we are finding out about are confirmed reported cases of measles that are being tracked. And I think all of us physicians know that there's probably a lot of cases that we're never hearing about. We worry a lot right now. There's a massive ongoing outbreak in South Carolina that is not under control. And clearly people travel, people move around, people get on airplanes. And so more and more and more cases are going to spread around the country. I think to put it in perspective, last year in 2025, I believe there was something like just over 2,000 cases, and we've nearly already hit the 1,000 case mark in just February of this year. So we are in a very different position this year than we were last year, and last year was already a record-setting high year. So cases of measles in the U.S. are rapidly escalating, and these alerts, I practice in the DC area, and I get alerts from DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and I also get them on a daily basis. I just got new ones about multiple grocery stores in Virginia, multiple other stores in Virginia. So there's been exposures all over the DMV this month.
Doctor, based on your experience, and we're seeing all these outbreaks happening basically at once, right? Can we tie this directly to some of the changes in vaccine policy in the United States and some of the consistent vaccine skepticism in the last few years with vaccination protocols? Or is there another thing tied to this as well that's supercharging the spread?
Really, the primary cause is decrease in vaccinations. And so measles, kind of like I said in that video, it is an incredibly, incredibly contagious disease. It's almost hard to explain how contagious it is. I think people think about COVID as being really contagious. And in epidemiology, we have this thing called an R naught, which is essentially a measure of if you get sick with something, how many people are you going to spread it to? The R naught of something like COVID is like 4 or 5 people. So maybe I'll give COVID to 4 or 5 people. The R naught of measles is 18. So it just spreads really quickly to more people. And so in order to keep a community from getting measles, you have to keep 95% of that community vaccinated. So in order to keep measles from spreading, and we can't vaccinate everybody. I have patients who have liver transplants or patients who are immunosuppressed. We can't vaccinate those patients. And so we like to leave that 5% wiggle room for people who really can't get the vaccine. But we know around the United States, rates of MMR vaccination have been dropping for years, and they are hitting a low point, and they are dropping further. And I think there has been mixed messaging about the safety of the vaccine, about recommendations from the CDC of who and when, should get that vaccine. And I think that's made things really hard for parents. I'm a parent myself, and thankfully I'm a pediatrician, and I, have had the time to learn about the MMR vaccination, and I have faith in it, and I've been able to trust it. But I think when you're getting mixed messaging as a parent, it can be really challenging to know what the right decision is. And thankfully, I think pediatricians are all, very much behind the MMR vaccine. I think more and more I hear our government fully recommending it and getting behind it, but there was some hesitancy, and I think that really did make kind of our population coverage with the MMR vaccine take a hit.
So I have a question that it's obviously for personal reasons, but also I generally don't know the answer to this, but you talked about people walking around with it. You talked about how it can linger in the air. You talked about how it can infect other people. You also mentioned how if you are vaccinated, that kind of stops it right there. But are you then a carrier who can then infect someone who is not vaccinated, even if it doesn't impact you in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So, mostly this is kind of how viral transmission works. Essentially, if I'm vaccinated, but someone with measles sort of coughs in my face and then I breathe the measles in, my body shuts it down so quickly that that measles virus doesn't have time to infect my body and start replicating. And so I am much less likely to transmit it. The measles vaccine is not perfect. So it's not 100% effective, but 2 doses of it is near perfect. It's close to 97% effective. And so it is possible for a vaccinated person to develop measles, for the virus to replicate, for them to spread measles. It is possible. But vaccination really, really, really reduces that risk. The standard vaccination schedule in the United States, which is still endorsed both by the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics, so this recommendation is matched on both of those schedules, is to get an MMR vaccine when you're 1 year old, and then to get another dose of that when you're 4 years old. And that 1-year-old dose is about 93% effective. The 4-year-old dose boosts you to about 97%. And we recommend it at 4 before kids are going into elementary school, because obviously that's a super crowded environment where measles would spread incredibly rapidly if kids didn't have good protection.
For people out there that may be uncertain or have seen these mixed messages, they just had kids or they have other situations, can you cut through a lot of this stuff and say, okay, what is the background on this vaccine? How long has it been around? How has it been tested? And how do we know that it is completely safe and really won't hold up or will hold up against these misinformation items or things of that nature?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I mean, we've been vaccinating for measles in the United States since the 1960s.
Wow.
This live attenuated vaccine that we currently use has been around, I think, since 1968. And so this is a, tested, tried and true vaccine. Really, there was some studies that were incorrect that came out of the UK that questioned the relationship between the MMR vaccine and autism. And so that is obviously something that, if connected, would be really scary. But as doctors have done more research, as scientists have done more research, this has been studied over and over and over again in much larger and more robust studies, and that same connection has never been replicated. In fact, the original study that sort of made that allegation has been retracted, and the paper was taken out of the journal that it was originally published in because it was found not to be correct data. And studies since then done all over the world. There's been a study in Sweden, a study in Denmark, a study in Japan with hundreds of thousands of children have not found this same connection. And I think some parents don't understand that when we being the scientific community heard about this connection, we didn't just laugh at it and dismiss it. It was like we looked into this, and we looked into it many, 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 many times with hundreds of thousands of patients to make sure that that connection didn't exist. I also now hear some people incorrectly stating that the side effects of the measles vaccine are very worrisome. I will say the primary side effect of the measles vaccine is it hurts. It's obviously a needle, and the poke is uncomfortable. It can make your baby's legs sore. Oftentimes children will get some amount of a fever. The interesting part is the vaccine can take a week or two to work, so sometimes that fever happens a week or two later. I've incorrectly seen on the internet recently that encephalitis is a common reaction from the measles vaccine, which is brain inflammation. That happens in 1 in a million cases. And so that is theoretically possible. If it were to happen, it is not deadly. To put it in perspective, if you get the measles virus, 1 in 1,000 children will get encephalitis. It is far, far, far more common of a side effect from the virus. And so, I have little kids, and I have gotten my kids both of their vaccines. I have not, worried about side effects or risks in any way at all. I definitely worry about the risks of measles. Of every 1,000 kids that gets measles, a couple will die, and that's really terrifying. And so I highly, highly recommend the vaccine. I think we are lucky to live in an area where the vast majority of parents still want to vaccinate their children. And so I feel grateful that even though the list of places where measles is occurring is growing, I feel grateful that we live in a community where people are, for the most part, choosing to protect each other and themselves. So I'm grateful for the families that I work with that understand that their choice to vaccinate their kid also impacts their neighbors and their community.
I want to be delicate with this question, but So the Florida campus where there has been this outbreak is a Christian, I believe it's a Catholic university, Ave Maria. I know you mentioned in the video that those exposure cases that happened in DC happened during the March for Life. There were people who attended the Basilica over in Northeast. So on the one hand, we have politics playing into this sort of vaccine hesitancy. On the other side, we have science, which is trying to cut through that message. Do we need to recruit other voices to encourage people to kind of drown out some of the noise? And is that something the medical community is working towards? Do you need to recruit faith leaders to encourage people to kind of take these precautions and maybe not play into the politicize it, or listen to social media and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I will actually say the religious communities, I've looked into this, and the vast majority of religious leaders recommend vaccination. And so sometimes that will come up at clinic where patients will ask, I don't know if this is against my religion, or I'm not sure if I'm allowed to have this vaccine. And religious leaders have actually been quite outspoken that yes, vaccines are allowed and recommended. To be clear, I'm Catholic. I went to a Catholic medical school, and I think that, I can't think of an example of a religious leader who has told people to forego vaccines. I cannot say the same for our political leaders, but I will say I actually feel that the religious community in all sorts of religions has been quite outspoken that vaccination is an important thing to do, and that vaccination does not violate tenets of most major religions.
Let me ask you this, Doctor, kind of on a more general question for the vision for the future, right? Are we living in a totally new age compared to years ago, and where we're not getting vaccinated as much, and that's going to continue to grow and happen? And do you see that happening and continuing? And if that's the case with this new environment where we're not getting vaccinated as much, are there certain precautions that people need to take, vaccinated and unvaccinated, that are a little bit more than they used to because everybody was vaccinated? Like, are there new things people are going to have to do when we see an outbreak like this or others to really mitigate potential future risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think what really saddens me is I've spent time in developing countries in Africa. I've spent time in developing countries in Central America where vaccine access is not available, right, and where death in childhood is a reality, and where suffering from infectious diseases is a reality. And I think what breaks my heart is I do not want child suffering to be the reason that we learn our lesson. And I think, sadly, that is the direction that we're headed in, is, until everybody has met somebody that has suffered from a vaccine preventable disease and seen what that suffering looks like. As a pediatrician, I think my colleagues and I are so vocal about this because we have seen it. We have been in the ICU and watched a child suffer, and watched a child be intubated, and watched a child, have complications from a disease that a vaccine should have prevented. And I think it hurts, it really hurts to watch it. And I think I don't want the average person to have to know what that looks like. But sadly, I think there's a reason that we've evolved to vaccinate. And that reason is because we wanted to avoid suffering and death. And unfortunately, I think that's really how people learn, is you see what it looks like, you see your kid go through it. It's funny, I have parents ask me in clinic all the time, like, why is there no vaccine for hand, foot, and mouth disease? Because it's just such an annoying virus to deal with when your child has it. And,
right.
and so I think parents get it when their kid gets an infectious disease and they see how hard it is to take care of a child who's in pain, to take care of a child with fevers, to take care of a child who can't breathe. I think, sadly, that's how we learn. And I'm hopeful, and I do believe, frankly, that our political leaders, and like you mentioned, our religious leaders, can be powerful voices in helping people kind of make this choice. I also think funding science is really important. When parents have questions, when parents want to know if an ingredient is safe, we should study that. We should dedicate money making sure that every single study is well done and that we're communicating that information to families.
And in our daily lives, so for individuals who are vaccinated, and let's say now here in the DMV. They're part and they're witnesses to this spread. Are there certain things that we can do to help prevent the spread, even though we are vaccinated already? Are there certain precautions that we should take with families, our friends, going out, avoiding places, or should we continue our life as normal?
I think people should enjoy life. That being said, if you're experiencing a fever, if you're really not feeling well, it definitely makes sense to stay at home. I do encourage people. I wish we had a society where, if you really weren't feeling well and you're coughing a lot and you're super stuffy, you should stay home. And I hope that your workplace would welcome your ability to do that. I want our schools to allow children to stay at home if they have fevers. And so I think just sort of when you're not feeling well, stay at home. And then clearly, most people who are immunosuppressed or people who are vulnerable understand that going out in public right now has more risk. And I do think for people who are vulnerable, there are options like wearing N95 masks or things to protect themselves. But for the average person, I think if you're vaccinated, enjoy your life and stay home when you're sick.
All right, Dr. Megan Pryor, thank you so much for spending some time with us here tonight and lending your expertise on this subject.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right, we're going to take another break. We're going to leave you with a live picture from National Harbor, our Fox 5 Skycam out there, all lit up, the Capitol wheel in purple tonight. Not sure if that's for anything in particular.
Yeah,
usually we see it all red, white, and blue, Tony P. When we come back, though, we're going to talk about some new options to stream this weekend. And Tony P, I'm going to talk about Love is Blind.
Of course.
We're going to take a quick break.
Got a lot of controversy around that.
All right, welcome back to the Live Zone Primetime on this Friday night. I meant to do what Tony is watching on this Friday night next, but I pulled in the wrong element.
Wow.
So we're going to talk about what you can watch
We gotta wait
on
for
this
me,
weekend.
I guess.
And one of the ones that has made the most headlines this weekend, Tony P, is this reality check, America's Next Top Model on Netflix. This is the documentary that looks at the hit reality show.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of accusations flying around. There has been a lot of fingers pointing at Tyra Banks for her role in some of the bullying that happened on this show while it was on. This one definitely making a lot of headlines. Streaming now on Netflix if you want to check that one out.
Definitely much so. I mean, it reminds me of the Biggest Loser documentary, where it's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. I mean, the things that are going on in America's Next Top Model, whether it be, of course, the bullying, a lot of racist stuff that was going on too, that thank God things would not be acceptable today in this environment.
Yeah. This is one of those sort of situations where it's 2026 standards put on at different time, but at the
some
same
of that
time,
stuff would have been bad at any time.
Also, if you're into the docu-series and you're a fan of food, Being Gordon Ramsay, also streaming on Netflix. This is an inside look at the life of the celebrity chef. And not just the celebrity chef, really a member of the Fox 5 family, because this man is absolutely one of those. I mean, he's got more shows on this network.
It's like most of our syndicated programming here at Fox is Gordon Ramsay.
Master Chef, Next Level Chef, Hell's Kitchen, all of them. Listen, I know Valentine's Day was last weekend, but 56 days streaming on Prime Video would probably have been right up any Valentine's alley. This is an erotic thriller, follows Oliver Kennedy and Sierra Wise, who meet by chance in a supermarket and quickly begin an intense, fast-moving relationship. 56 days after their first encounter, homicide detectives arrive at Oliver's apartment to find a brutally murdered, decomposed body that can't initially be identified.
What?
So, 56 days. That one's streaming on Prime Video now. That's a series, erotic thriller.
I can see.
This one I'm a little bit excited about, but I'm also a little behind. We've got season 3 of The Night Agent. This is on Netflix as well. I just finished season 1. This was one of my overnight feeding watches. It is dumb fun. It's, the first season was mainly set here in Washington, D.C. It is one of those shows where if you like watching for landmarks, Washington, D.C. landmarks, Washington, D.C. things in shows that are set in Washington, D.C., but not necessarily filmed here, you will be very disappointed.
We got to bring filming back to D.C.
It's one of those things where you're like, where are you exactly?
Right. I don't know that street. Wait a minute.
Well,
I haven't seen that before.
There's one part where he's like, hey, I can be at the White House in 20 minutes. They are in the middle of the wilderness.
Yeah, no.
Like clearly North Carolina.
Exactly.
Anyway, but
you can't get from Bethesda
the first season,
to there.
Exactly.
In 20
the first
minutes.
season was one of the most watched things on Netflix of all time. All right. Also, out today, we have the season 2 premiere of The Last Thing He Told Me. This is Jennifer Garner. This is Angawi Rice, and it is introducing this season Judy Greer, who fans may remember from 13 going on 30. Also with Jennifer Garner, they are great friends. They reunite in this new project. This is based on the best-selling book. The sequel book only came out weeks before the second season. So I thought that was interesting because a lot of times when it comes to these books adapted to the screen, you have more time to read them before you get a chance to watch them.
Exactly.
When they shot this, when they got the script, the book had not even come out yet. So I talked to Angawi Rice and Judy Greer all about those page-to-screen adaptations, and we also talked about that 13 going on 30 reunion. Take a listen.
Diving right in, this question is for both of you, but Judy, I'll start with you. So, when it comes to adaptations from the page to the screen, do you generally like to read the book first before you watch a movie or a series? And part of the reason that I'm asking this is because that wasn't really an option with this this time around.
I do like reading the book first, and I did read the book for season 1, and I watched season 1, obviously, when it was on. I was a fan before I even knew that I would be a part of it. I like reading the book first because it's like, then I can use my imagination, and for the most part, I would say, when it comes to movies, I tend to be more disappointed than with TV shows, because a movie you have to fit so much into, 2 hours, but with a TV show, you really can service all the characters and the whole story, and so that's what's so exciting about this trend of the mini series being back. We call them limited series. In this case, it became a TV series.
Gary, do you feel the same way? And if people are, obviously the second book is coming out so close to the release of the second season. Do you think people should read it first, or should they watch it and then go back and read?
Great question. I personally will do both. Sometimes I'll read something first, sometimes I'll watch it first, and that will inspire me to read it. Especially with adaptations of classics. Sometimes a movie is a good way to get into it, and then you know the story, you know the people, so you go back and read the book. I think for this, for season 2 and the first time I saw him, they both have such different elements and bring out different characters and different pieces. So it's really hard to say which I would recommend first. I don't know. Both and definitely do both though.
You're not there's weirdly kind of no spoilers in either.
Yeah, I think definitely read it, watch it, in whichever order you want.
So co-creator, author Laura Dave wrote that she, quote, held these characters close for so long, so she wanted to slow down saying goodbye to them. Readers didn't want to say goodbye either, reached out with notes, embraced Hannah, Bailey, and Owen. The sequel is for those readers. And Gary, did you feel the same way about Bailey? And has reaction from fans been similar?
Oh my gosh. I mean, poor Bailey, she had a rough go of it in season 1. I don't know if people loved her. No, I loved her. I think people did love her. People understood her. But she's like, you know, she's a spiky teenager and
You've been through a lot, though.
She's been through
even
a
when
lot.
we meet you in season 1, like you had been through a lot.
She's been through a lot. So I think like for me, it's such a joy to be a part of something so beloved, and like that makes me so happy speaking to people who are like, oh, can't wait for season 2. Like literally the day I had a meeting about season 2, that same day I went to a birthday party and someone said, is there a season 2? I was like, maybe, I don't know, maybe. So it's a joy to be a part of something that has connected with so many people. And I hope people like where Bailey has like gone to in season 2, because she's just gone on such a journey, and like I don't know, I'm like proud of her in a way.
Yeah, she's really grown up.
She's grown up.
Yeah.
Very grown up. So Judy, you and Jennifer Garner have been friends for years, obviously. Yeah. What was it like working together again? And was there something about this role in particular that made you feel like the time for a reunion was right?
Well, we've been trying forever, so it wasn't like we have worked together a few times on a few things, but we really just keep trying. So this one stuck. The role, for me, the role was really exciting to play. I don't often get cast as, you know, the daughter of a crime boss. Believe it or not, I have not passed on loads of those roles. But that's cool. But it was just really fun to come back and like spar with your friend. I mean, if we can't play best friends in a movie, then we can play best enemies.
Yeah.
Yes, so you can catch the premiere, season 2 premiere on Apple TV right now. The rest of the episodes drop week to week. Tony P, that's what everyone out there can watch this weekend. Let's talk about what you have been watching today.
Here's what we're watching around the country and around the world with Tony P. Let's give this a start. On the international front, of course, tensions with Iran are continuing to escalate sharply after President Trump issued Tehran a 10 to 15-day deadline to reach a nuclear agreement or face potential military consequences. U.S. officials confirmed advanced military contingency planning is underway, including targeted operations and expanded naval and air deployments across the Middle East. Diplomats said negotiations are focusing on limiting Iran's nuclear enrichment program, which has reached levels close to weapons-grade purity, while Iran is signaling it would only accept a deal that preserves civilian enrichment rights and provides sanctions relief as well. Iranian officials criticized the growing U.S. military presence, but said diplomacy still remains possible if these negotiations continue. So this is one thing we're going to be watching day by day, because President Trump is looking at other options diplomatically with these negotiations and is starting to put military options in place. Back home here in Texas, investigators released new details about an ICE-related shooting that occurred last year. The shooting involved Ruben Ray Martinez, a 23-year-old killed during an encounter with federal immigration officials in South Padre Island. Authorities said the confrontation began following a vehicle incident connected to an enforcement response, with multiple agencies including Texas Rangers, local police, and federal officials participating in the investigation. Internal procedures triggered mandatory federal review by ICE's Office of Professional Responsibility, along with independent state investigators. Officials described the case as an active officer-involved shooting investigation, as questions surrounding the encounter continued to draw national attention, especially since this case took place before the tragic death of Renee Nicole Good. In the United Kingdom, we're going back to the former Prince Andrew story, where officials are reviewing today whether former Prince Andrew, I keep saying that, could be formally stripped of his remaining royal privileges and potentially removed from the line of succession amid renewed political pressure tied to the Epstein-related scrutiny, as well as his detainment yesterday. Any charge would require parliamentary legislation, though, rather than just a royal decree from his brother, King Charles, alone. New economic data released today showed the U.S. economy grew at an annualized rate of 1.4% in the fourth quarter of 2025, a sharp slowdown from the 4.4% growth in the previous quarter. The Commerce Department said consumer spending and business investment continued supporting expansion, but declines in government spending and exports weighed on overall growth following last year's federal government shutdown. Economists described the report as evidence the economy remains resilient, but is clearly cooling heading into this first and second quarter of 2026. Also in business news, controversy is surrounding one of my favorite candies ever in this world, and that is Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. After Brad Reese, love that name by the way, grandson of inventor H.B. Reese, publicly accused Hershey of shifting towards cheaper ingredients in some product variations amid soaring global cocoa prices. Hershey said the classic peanut butter cup remains unchanged and made with milk, but acknowledged adjustments across newer product lines as chocolate costs rise worldwide. So I'm guessing with some of the Oreo combinations or those kind of more different shaped variations, that might be the case. So also in entertainment, Kelly Clarkson confirmed finally that she will end The Kelly Clarkson Show after its current season, a move already expected within the television circles, but now that she has addressed it publicly in detail. Clarkson said the daily production schedule has put a lot of emotional pressure and been overwhelming following major personal life changes, explaining she wants to focus on raising her children, protecting her mental health, and returning more fully to music after 7 seasons and multiple daytime Emmy wins. We're going to miss her show. It's one of my favorites. Fantastic, her and Sherry. Comedian Conan O'Brien spoke publicly for the first time about the December killings of filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle. O'Brien revealed that the Reiners had attended his Christmas party shortly before the tragedy, where reports said Rob Reiner and his son were involved in a tense confrontation. O'Brien said he waited to speak until the family had time to grieve, calling Reiner a towering creative influence whose work shaped modern television comedy and iconic films including The Princess Bride and Harry Met Sally. At the Winter Olympics in Milan, Team USA defeated Slovakia 6-2 in the men's hockey semifinal, powered by 2 goals from Jack Hughes and a dominant second period in which the Americans scored 3 unanswered goals. And finally, for our Black History Month, not just a fact, but a spotlight of the day. Historians, social media creators, and chefs online are working to preserve lost Black American recipes through archival research, handwritten cookbooks, social media content, and oral histories. Scholars say generations of Black cooks helped define American cuisine, from Southern comfort food to barbecue traditions, yet were rarely credited in mainstream culinary history, a legacy researchers and content creators alike are working to restore. This is when I love my industry of social media creators, because this is the type of stuff and messages you want to put out there to bring back great recipes and traditions that were totally overlooked over the years.
Yeah, no question at all. And Tony P, I do want to go back to these this controversy over the the Reese Cup, because here is the deal, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. Traditionally, the you've got the Reese Cup.
Yes.
And then you've got like the Christmas tree, the Reese Christmas tree.
Yes.
And you've got the Reese egg. And you've got the Reese like...
It's all the same stuff.
No.
You don't
no, it is not.
You don't think so?
No, it is not, because the proportion of chocolate to peanut butter is different.
Oh, come on.
In the jack-o'-lantern, the pumpkin, and the
Oh,
Easter
my
egg.
God.
But they are by far better than the traditional Reese Cup as a result.
You think so?
Yes. I will choose the holiday version of the Reese. Reese's, or what is it? Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
Reese's.
Reese, right?
Reese's, yeah.
Yeah, Reese's.
Not Reese's,
Anyway,
is it Reese's? Yeah.
thank you to everyone who joined us here on the Live Zone Primetime.
Hot take there, my friend.
No, I don't think that's a hot take at all. If you agree with me, drop a comment.
There's too many variations. It's all the same
If we
thing.
had more time, I'd tell you to scan that QR code and tell Tony P that he is wrong. Anyway, we're down to the final 10 seconds. Have a great, wonderful, safe weekend. We'll be back on Monday, Fox 5 News at 10. And an update on that winter weather coming up next. Darn, I didn't get the buzz gags in. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Next time.